Hello, Tony here for Lightwave Digital. Welcome to part 2 of the basics of Lightwave 3D. So in part 1 we created these basic cubes and a ground plane. We've given them layer names and we've given them surface names. Before we send them through to layout to start texturing and animating them, or whatever we need to do in layout, what we want to do is make sure the pivot point is in the right place. So the pivot point is what the object rotates around. So to go to layer, pivot, this shows you where they are. So I've moved them into the center of each object. However, when you come to do this, so if I go on the brick one, by default Lightwave adds the pivot point to the center of the grid, so you need to move it into place. Why do you need to do this? Let's say for instance with this ground plane I wanted it to rotate from a certain corner, so you need to tell Lightwave that's where the actual pivot point is. So for instance, if I go to pivot and I move this over here, when I send this through, because I've moved this, that's where the handles will appear to animate and rotate the object. Now for this exercise I just need them centered, so when you go onto each layer here, click center. So when you go down each one, look, I've already done it on here, you need to click center so they're all ready when you go through. Then you simply press S once on your keyboard to save it. So now we're ready to go through. So what we do at the top corner here, drop down, send the objects to layout. So this is going to open layout and it's going to send your objects through. Okay, so when it comes through, as you can see, this is my setup. The only difference is I like this bottom right to be a camera view. However, if you, when you open it, you get this view and you can't click maximize, that's because you need to go to edit, over to the current scene when you click on the edit options and change the viewport to what you want, like so, and then you get this setup. And like I said, I like a camera view, a right view and a top view and a perspective view. So like in Modeler, you got lots of tabs with different tools. You've got a way of viewing which window you want and how to view it. You've got a few tools here, so a few little settings and ways to grab screenshots. You've got a little target here, so whatever object you're on, so I'm just going to click on the objects, look. If I click the little target, it will go to that object, centers it in your actual viewport. So if I click on the light, that's what it does. So you can leave that on if you wish. You've got side to side, up and down, so this is your movement. You've got your rotate, you've got your zoom in and out, maximize and minimize, like you said, and it's each of the corners, apart from the obvious ones like there ain't no rotate and a flat viewport. And then in your scene you've got two lights, so I just click and move them up, and the properties for each object and element within your scene is at the bottom here, look. So objects, drop down for the box to select them, or you can click on them. They've got other objects, we're not going to use bones, we will use the lights. So when we click on lights, you've got different lights, cameras we'll use, and whenever you click on once and you click properties, it brings up the information about them so you can start edit them. So currently what I want to do is, first thing I'll do is let's move our camera into place. So I'm on my camera, which brings up the handles, and then you just literally grab the handle and bring it the way you want it. So with moving, I always use the right and the top, and usually what I do is I usually just have them at the drop down the way you want to view the elements as wireframe, like so. I don't need them to be colour like this in every one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move them in like so. Let's do about there. I'm going to move it to the side, and then with the actual green handle I'm going to move it up, and now I want to rotate it. So I'm going to go to modify, rotate. I'm going to click and drag inside the camera view as if I'm holding the camera to move it into place, like so. I can just grab the handles here, look, and do it. It's up to you. I just like to do it in my camera view. And then where it says texture shade solid, click on what's called VPR, viewport renderer. This will give you an element. This will show you what your actual render looks like. So currently I can see the actual objects aren't quite on the floor, so I can click on an object. Let's zoom in on the right, so I'm just dragging to the side, and I'm just going to bring it down. And the same with the actual green, bring it down so they're on the floor a bit better, like so. I mean, you can drag them along and put them wherever you want. I mean, and again, like with rotate, you can click on rotate and you can rotate them into a different position if you want. That is completely up to you. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use the textures for each one of these objects that we did in part 1, and we're just going to add them. So the easiest thing to do is go over to Surface Editor. We're on the brick. So the brick one is this one we did first, the green, and if you notice, look, it's green. So if we start dragging about, you'll see the colour changing. You can click on the little colour swatch, and there's lots of different options to change here. You can even pick from screen and pick any colour from any monitor, any screen, and it will become that colour for you, which is really cool. You've got lots of different elements, so roughness, specular, metallic, and so on, that you can experiment with, and these what make up your flat colour and help blend in some of your images and stuff. So for instance, I'll just choose a couple. So metallic, if I was to turn metallic up, saying I want more metallic materials within this actual texture, you can see it changing and becoming more metallic based on that. And again, roughness will scatter and mix in with your specular. So if I turn this up, you'll see it starts getting a bit rougher, and it spreads out the actual specular, so it's more kind of spread out across the surface, which is quite nice as well. But what we're going to do is we're going to add some textures to the object. So the first one, like I said, is the brick one. So what we do, it says brick principled, and it's principled because it's the basic kind of default for Lightwave, and it's default for a lot of other softwares. But under the material drop down, there are lots of others, but mainly we're going to be working with this principle based for the current time. So we double click it, and then it brings up what's called the node editor. Now the node editor gives you bunches of nodes, which are basically little squares of information that you plug into each other to get an outcome. So it can get confusing, but we're just going to stick to the basics, and like most things, you just build up your knowledge. So first thing we're going to do is over here where it says nodes, add nodes, I'm going to click, go down to 2D node and click image. So I want to use an image that I've collected. So first let's go and load some images in. So we're over here on your left hand side, click on image editor, and there's no images. I'm going to click load. Now, because I've set my contents folder up, it's took me to these images. So these are the ones I've got from a website called Picabay, which is the free to use. And I'm going to press OK, and it loads them in like so. Now, based on what kind of setup you've got, it's in Lightwave. If I shift click and select all of them, I'm going to tell it for the color space to be sRGB, so we get a more truer color through, and we're ready to go. So back to the node editor, and obviously the node editor, you just double click the texture. I'm going to pull the color. So basically you're pulling a line out, so you're pulling color into color. So I'm saying this, whatever this node is made up of, I want it to be on this object. Well, currently there's nothing, so it'll go black. So we double click it, and it brings up the options. And from images, we can choose one of the images. So let's choose brick wall. So as we can see, let's just go and zoom in here, look. And we don't need the actual, for this we can use the open GL to look. You can see it's projecting this brick through the Z. So the Z axis is running, the little blue handle running straight through and hitting the object. But it's not hitting any of the others, that's why it's stretching it. We have to tell Lightwave in this option how it wants to project. So where it says here, look, mapping, because it's got other sides, it's more of a cubic. So we go down to cubic, and then it wraps it round like so. And then if it was if it wasn't this scale, you could click automatic sizing, but it is 1 meter. It's default to 1 meter square. But what we've basically got straight away is we've got like our brick texture showing up. So if we click on the top corner here, go to VPR, you can see what it looks like. And it's got quite a bit of shine. So let's shut this down and this, and we go back to it. And that's because we've got specular on it. So if I turn specular off by dragging it, it's got no shine. You could say, okay, I want 10% shine, but to tone it down, let's put 35% roughness. So it's still got a bit of a shine, but the roughness has spread it out a bit better. Probably could play around with this a bit more. And it's as simple as that. So let's do it again on, let's say, this object. So a shortcut, if you hold shift and click on an object while it's on VPR, it brings it up. So box, wooden box. So again, we're going in here. We're going to drop down node 2D texture image. We're going to drag and drop color to color, double click it, and then we're going to load in the wood texture, which I've called it floor, like so. So again, you can see it's going round, but it's not going around the sides. So let's go and say cubic, like so, and then you can click automatic sizing, so it'll try and wrap it round better, like so. Now some of the corners might not quite fit again, but it don't look bad to me. But you can tell it to try and, I mean, this is more for UVing, but you can try and say, okay, I want it to mirror the textures to join up, so they'll kind of join up a bit better. And also, if you want, you can actually change how big they are. So if you wanted to change how big the planks are, you could say, okay, I'm just going to say do 3 meters on all of them. So you've got a bigger chunk, the bigger planks, like so. So we'll shut this down and this, and I'm going to leave the specular because I quite like the shine on it, but it's as simple as that, really. There's a smoothing option that you can click to make the smoother if it's on more spherical or complex objects that you can see the polygons, so you can decide how much the smoothness is. But that's kind of the basics of adding textures to it. So all you've got to do now is repeat this and then add a texture to this shape and then to the ground shape, and then we're ready to kind of have a look at the lights and see if we can do a render.